So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. And I'm really looking forward to this chat today because it's a bit of a change of pace. It's been so many numbers. It's been like the Matrix for the last 30 days or 27 days, I think it is, of just doing podcast on statistical analysis of players. And I'm delighted to take a bit of a break from that and chat to one of the best guys that you will see on Twitter and on TikTok and wherever you want to find any content. It's, of course, Jack Grimse. Jack, how are you doing? And welcome to the podcast.
Neil, you absolutely flatter me. It's a pleasure to be here. Glad we can get together and chat about Villa. Hopefully not too many numbers. You know, I do love the stats, but
well, you're okay to throw out stats. I'm all statted out at the moment. It's been and I suppose that's the sign of a good off season. We will get on and talk about that in a moment. Specifically, I suppose business done and business left to do. But before we do that, obviously I know a lot of people are going to be familiar with you, and you've had a roaring subscriber count and follower count and Twitter. But do you want to tell the guys a little bit of a background about yourself? Obviously, you are based in the States and you're an Aston Villa fan. It's always good to know the backstory behind, number one, how the hell did that happen? And number two, what the scene is like over there.
Yeah, like you said, Neil, I'm based in New York right now, originally from Chicago, and spent a lot of time with the Chicago Villains. They helped me really get into following Villa. Like you were saying, one of my most popular videos is actually about why I support Villa. I think it's my pinned tweet. And yeah, essentially long story, Villa kind of found me. That's how I feel about it. And needed to dive into the sport, needed a club, and it just so happened that it was Villa. It was December 2008, I think. Ashley Young had scored the winner against Everton. I was just watching randomly. Just had turned the TV on and started following Villa a little bit, playing FIFA, and really just evolved from there. And made my second pilgrimage to Villa Park this year. Saw the Leeds match, which was an insane goal fest. Brilliant. So, yeah, it's been a lot better, I think, the past couple of years than maybe the previous 5 or so. I think it's a really exciting time to be a Villa fan.
Absolutely. Actually, the game that you mentioned about Ashley Young scoring against Everton, that, you know, if there was a game that was going to get you hooked, that last minute winner was definitely going to do it. And I have a little anecdote about that. At the time, I was working in a phone shop at the time, and I was selling, it was a contract. I was doing a contract up for somebody, but we had a load of TVs in the phone shop because we sold TV deals too. And that game was on, and I was looking at it over the shoulder of the guy I was selling the phone contract to. And as Ashley Young scored, I said to him, "Can you please excuse me for a moment? I must go celebrate." And he had no idea what was happening. And I started jumping up and down inside the store. And so it was one of those moments that I certainly won't forget either, because it was the guy took it in good jest, all right, but turned out that he was a Man United fan. So I tore up the contract, told him, "Get out of my store, get out of my shop, you filthy Man United fan." No, I didn't.
You got to enjoy the pleasures of Ashley Young a couple of years later.
Exactly. Yeah, he had the last laugh on me. Last laugh on me. But you mentioned,
and like you were saying, just went to Toronto last month for the annual North American Villains Meetup. It was a great atmosphere. Almost 200 villains from across North America, and even the Kidderminster Lions always make a pilgrimage over to North America. I think this was the first time we were able to get together in 3 years. So good to see everyone from all the fan clubs around the US, Canada, the Caribbean, and even from further. Yeah,
there's usually one or two Irish delegates, as we will call them, from the Irish supporters clubs that tried to get over. But this year I think this year might have even been the first year that there hasn't been an Irish somebody that's gone over from the Irish Lions. But we will certainly rectify that in years to come for sure. And I think it's Seattle next year, so that's a pretty long trip for you guys, all the way across.
Yeah, it's far from New York. It's even further from anywhere else, and it's kind of funny. Some people maybe recognize me from when I used to to write in podcasts for 7,500 to hold, and the name of that blog came from how it's 7,500 kilometers from Villa Park to Seattle, to the West Coast, because there were a few of the founders of that blog had lived in Seattle, so that's where the name origin comes from over there.
That's excellent, because obviously Seattle is a hotbed for creativity, and nothing more than look at it. If you go there and see a good garage band or good grunge band in Seattle, I think that's bucket list stuff. See something coming up specifically in musical terms, but obviously in creativity terms, Seattle is one of the cities to be in. Specifically in the United States. But it is great to see that North America has such a vibrant Aston Villa supporters clubs. You mentioned that the Chicago Lions, I think Simon Leach is the chairman that is there, and obviously there's guys like Rick Leon, Brett in Toronto, and then you've got guys like Kevin Hunter and Mark Jarobi, and like everybody knows these guys. And if you don't know these guys, you should be following them, because they're as passionate as many. There's passionate as many Aston Villa fans that you'll find even in the Birmingham area, and it's fantastic to see, because it's a growing sport. And even with the MLS deal with Apple at the moment now, in the United States, and obviously our owners, Suarez and Edens, I don't know, has they been signed in that contract that the Las Vegas Villains are actually going to be
not officially yet, but that's all the whispers I've been hearing.
It seems to be one of North America soccer's worst kept secrets, that they're going to be an entity in the MLS. But look, once again, that deal with Apple TV and Apple TV Plus obviously pushes it to a mass market within the United States and North America in general. Never mind that, pushes it to a mass market, I suppose, really within the world, the MLS. So anything that's good for the MLS has to be good for Aston Villa, considering our owners look like they're going to be getting their feet under the table at negotiations for some of that sweet pile of money.
And hopefully a place to loan out some of our very talented youth.
Absolutely, or even a place to utilize to pluck the best talents, because North America is so, like, some of the most athletic people in the world come from North America.
There's always very low transfer fees because of the way the league works, the single entity nature of it. You see some of these players getting sold, like Matt Turner going to Arsenal for I think around $6 million, very reasonable transfer fee.
Yeah, I think there's some record broken recently with your man Chucho. How do you pronounce his name? From Watford, he went to Columbus Crew. I think it was something like 10 million euros was the signing fee there, which I thought was absolutely massive for an MLS team. But then again, Columbus Crew.
I think him, like Thiago Almada, a lot of the guys that Atlanta signs have been in the mid-teens in terms of transfer fees.
Yeah, and I know Columbus Crew are looking to grow there. They're looking to grow again. They nearly went out of business, and then the Haslams, who would be the Cleveland Browns owners, the Haslam Sports Group took them over as well, and look to be growing them in the Columbus area too. So once again, my Cleveland Browns fandom comes in handy in footballing stakes and in soccer stakes, I suppose, really, not American footballing stakes. Again,
I'll have to come back for another chat about how so many Villa fans support the Cleveland Browns.
Exactly. Yeah, you can blame Randy Lerner for that one. You can blame Randy Lerner for that for sure. But yeah, it's like, I suppose the off season, we spoke about it and we touched on it there at the start of the podcast. Villa are getting noticed this off season, and it's been like, we raced out of the traps, did we not? And I suppose what's your feeling on that? Like, getting the business done so early and seeing some bigger teams flounder. Why do you think Aston Villa chose to do that, or is it very, very obvious?
I think it's completely deliberate, especially this year with the season starting earlier ahead of the World Cup. And it's just a mark of good management, right? Like yesterday, Bayern Munich announced the signing of Sadio Mane, and Bayern are serial for doing their business early in the window, getting their business done, sometimes even before the end of the season. And that's what Villa are doing now. And that's just the mark of good management. And I think that's really one of the reasons I'm most excited about following Villa, is because the management aspect is very competent these days.
Yeah, it wasn't always that way. My God, no. Was it not always that
No,
way?
I remember when Lambert was told to operate on a shoestring budget, a sell to buy policy, and in comes Joe Cole and Kieran Richardson, and
Philip
they had a good start to that season. Yeah, Senderos, Robert Pires. I don't know. We could have another episode. The list goes on of That's kind of the banter era of Aston Villa, if you will.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then that's not even before we get into the signings like Tonev, Hellenius, Joe Shokore, and all these guys who looked at the time, we were like hipster FC because they were buying players for little money that were pretty decent on Football Manager. And then probably Barry, Joe Shokore, they never really amounted to much. And then Yokore didn't amount to much either after he got injured. But let's forget about that period of time, as you say, and look forward to competent management. And I think that does come from the top down, obviously, with Wes Edens being a franchise owner in the NBA, and then obviously having one of Africa's most successful businessman, or the head of one of Africa's most successful business families, should I say, running the club. We can only thank our lucky stars that we got into that position, should I say, after some of the messers we had.
Yeah, no kidding. We were on the verge of administration and fell right into the lap of two very competent businessmen who you can tell they don't play games. They have the right people running things, and it doesn't turn around overnight, but we're starting to get there.
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest things, we didn't even plan to talk about this, but I think one of the biggest things that people need to bear in mind with regards to the owners is they both come from areas whereby they know they have to spend money to make money. And they certainly are doing that. They're spending money on backroom teams. They're spending money on the youth academies. They're going to be spending money, obviously, on the Las Vegas Villains, should that come to pass. The new inner city training ground that they're going to have. There's tons, the new North Stand and so on. And I think that's impressive, because the fact that they can just dump money into the club like that is something we could have only dreamed of ever. Like literally ever since the Doug Ellis stand was built back in the early 2000s, late 90s to early 2000s. We can only really dream of massive investment into the club. A lot of people talk, but these guys look like they're going to walk the walk, and long may it continue from a stability point of view within the infrastructure of Aston Villa. But talking about the off season as well, Jack, and obviously we mentioned there that they've done their business early. Who do you think is going to have the biggest impact of the three people that we've signed so far? Obviously, Coutinho we know about, but who do you think is going to be the most influential and have the most impact within those three players that we've signed?
I think from a perspective of noticing the impact, it's going to be Boubacar Kamara, because Diego Carlos, I see him as being able to really shore us up at the back. And even in a way like how Ezri Konsa, sometimes you don't notice him because he's not putting a foot on the line, or he comes up with a block and you don't notice anything. But Boubacar Kamara, he's been so influential for France. I've been watching him a little bit in those games this summer in the Nations League, and he's not just someone who's a destroyer. He's an artist back there. He's spraying these passes all over the pitch, playing long diagonals across, and I think he's going to really allow our other midfielders, whether it's we'll probably talk about Douglas Luiz in a little bit, but whether it's Luiz or McGinn, able to go forward and have less responsibility to come back and defend, or less responsibility to be that protector of the back four. Yeah,
I agree for sure that Kamara is. And look, once again, we talked about stealing a march on bigger clubs. I think it's fair to say we stole a match in the whole of Europe with regards to Boubacar Kamara, because there's genuine big names who were, now we've been linked to them for ages, but I think it was a case of plucky old Villa, being linked with this player. But then you had the likes of Philippe Auclair, and you had big reporters within continental Europe that were saying, wow, this is a massive signing for Aston Villa. And it's nice to have that linked with your club, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, especially after Coutinho. I think in terms of prestige, he's the highest profile player we've ever signed. And following that up with Kamara, it's like these other clubs are waiting for the transfer window to officially open or something, and like you said, we snuck him from under their nose.
You mentioned Douglas Luiz there, and I suppose let's mention the elephant in the room. He has been linked with a move to Mourinho's Roma. Villa seem to be holding out for good money, which is good, because I like to see us play hardball, specifically with someone that I don't think we particularly want to lose or particularly wants to leave the club. But do you see a future for Douglas Luiz as a number 8 within this, now that, as you mentioned, that Boubacar Kamara will take that dirty work of being a number 6?
Yeah, I do. I think that's a better position for him. When he just joined Villa, I remember a couple of the goals he scored, and giving him that freedom to go forward. he's a good set piece taker too. And if you have someone that's taking the set pieces, they can't be protecting you at midfield in the event of a counterattack. So I think it's definitely gives Gerrard more options. And as we saw, Gerrard started with his kind of Christmas tree formation and evolved that a little bit to play with two strikers and utilize Watkins and Ings successfully together by the end of the year. So I think it's at least going to give us more options, maybe play a double pivot at times. Could be nice, could be just good to have that flexibility. But like you said, I don't see any reason for Douglas Luiz to leave the club. I don't think he wants to. He's settled with his partner, Alicia Lehman. They're having lots of fun in Birmingham. And he does have a year left. So maybe he's just waiting to see. Maybe he'll leave at the end of his contract, or maybe he'll sign a new deal.
And I think that's really.
I don't think we're going to let him go. I don't think we're going to let him go for less than a good price. He's a Brazil international. He's an Olympic champion with Brazil. Like it's not worth just getting him off the books. He's not on a big contract right now.
I agree, and I think that's really going to what's going to probably filter into the club's thinking on it is that, well, listen, Douglas, are you going to sign a new contract, or are you going to try and take us from Uggs and run down a contract? Because at the end of the day, as I say, run by competent businessmen, we want to get a few pounds for him before his contract renders him leaving on a free, and Aston Villa get left with a hole to fill and not any magic beans to try and grow that beanstalk with, because it's definitely something that we've been caught with before, where we've had big players that maybe have either we've brought them in on big money and they've not performed, and we've undersold them, and then likewise players that have left on free transfers as well in the past.
But it seems to be more of a theme that this year more than ever of players running down their contract and leaving on a free transfer. So it's not like it's totally free. I know I was looking at the spend. We've spent 54.5 million euros plus whatever signing bonus we paid to Kamara, because you got to believe that there was a hefty chunk there, because these players, their agents know that they're not paying the club. There's some money in the budget to pay them.
And why do you think that there has been a kind of an explosion in free transfers? I think it kind of maybe started last season with, I think Paris Saint-Germain kind of probably showed the blueprint of getting the likes of Donnarumma, getting Sergio Ramos, and essentially, Leo Messi as well on free transfers over the course of now. In fairness, that will go down as the best ever trio of free transfers in the history of world football. But I know they don't come around every time. But why do you think that that's accelerated? Why do you think people are willing to do that now?
Yeah, I mean, like players and agents, they're talking, and I think a couple of years ago, maybe they didn't realize they could do this, or it wasn't as common, especially for mid-career players, to be as willing to run down their contracts. But I mean, with it's kind of a global financial crisis. Not all these teams have Neymar money to be breaking the bank over and over and over again for a transfer fee. And I think just with some players are never going to be able to do it because they keep signing those bumper deals for another 5-year contract, another one on top of it. But I mean, I'm not entirely sure, but
because I literally just posed the question there, and I was thinking, I don't know the answer to this. It was just one of these things that fluttered into my brain. But I think it probably could be a fact whereby, even in North American sports, you've got trades and things like that happen. Well, usually they leave in free agency. And I think what it is some players go, okay, I don't want to be at the behest of this club selling me to a team that maybe I don't want to play with. So I'm going to run down my contract. I know I'm good enough. And specifically, I mean, with the world's best players that seem to be doing it, specifically those three that I mentioned, and they go, you know what? I can pick what club I want to go to. So if we want to form a super club, how's about I try and recruit people, almost like LeBron James did with the Lakers and tried to do in Cleveland, even though he did win a title with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think there is an element of that, specifically as players get into the more twilight of their career, like the Ramoses and the Messis, stuff that they were doing last season. So I don't know whether it would become more prevalent or whether this is just a one-off or a little blip, as you mentioned, with the financial crisis, but definitely something that people should keep their eye on, trying to get players to move in free transfers, because it is an interesting one. You also mentioned Douglas, he's in my head rent free, Diego Carlos, centre half that's come in lot of conversation around at the moment as to who's going to be his partner. For me, it's pretty clear cut, but I'd like to get your opinion on it. Who do you think is going to partner Douglas? Douglas, I did it again. Diego Carlos at centre half for Aston Villa, and maybe do we see more shake-ups there in the central defensive room for the coming season?
I mean, I think on opening day against Bournemouth, it's going to be Mings and Carlos in there, no question about it. And over the course of the season, of course, it's a World Cup year, so having that depth is going to be huge. But I don't know, Mings has been the vocal leader of the team. Personally, I'm a big fan of Tyrone Mings. I think we always play better with him in the team. He does make errors. Everyone makes errors, but as a central defender, they're very high profile. So I think it's going to be those two, and Konsa I think is going to compete and be able to rotate in with them. And same with Callum Chambers. I think Callum Chambers will play a little bit of right back this season, since right now Matty Cash is the only right back we have, and I don't see us signing another senior right back, at least at the moment. But yeah, I think it's going to be Mings and Carlos.
I think so too. I think it's pretty obvious that that's the way it's going to be. But then again, people have the argument that Carlos played the left-sided centre half and Koundé played the right for Sevilla. But then when you go back to his Nantes, that he did play on the right-hand side, and there was another left-sided centre half in there as well. So I think that position.
It's good he can play in both of those roles, and who knows, maybe we'll even go back to 3 at the back. Lucas Dean loves to get forward, Matty Cash loves to get forward. So
you're not allowed to mention that.
Situationally, it could happen. And even Kamara has played some as a centre back.
Absolutely. Started his career at Marseille as a centre back and was moved further forward when they realised he had very, very good feet. But you're not allowed to mention 3 at the back. We don't. The comments go mad when you mention 3 at the back. So shh, don't. I'm only kidding. I'm only joking. But obviously, look, we've spoken about 3 players that we've signed. And the transfer window or the off season isn't even, it's still in its infancy, really. And there's more work to be done. So I suppose the next thing we'll talk about is potential incomings. No, I'm not saying that we need exact names or whatever, but where do you think that Aston Villa need to strengthen over the course of the rest of the off season?
Right now, the only place I can see that we need is a backup left back. Ashley Young has been released, but still could return. Personally, I hope he does return in more of a leadership capacity. Maybe not as many minutes as he played this year, but he is useful cover at a couple of different positions, and I think he's a good voice in the dressing room. And I don't know, I'd love to see Cameron Archer stick around and get a shot if he's going to see regular minutes. There'll be 5 subs permitted this year, and if he's going to play a decent amount, I'd love to see him stay. If not, then he should play every game somewhere on loan. And maybe that makes you think of another forward, but I don't know. I feel pretty spoiled because right now we look like we have a lot of depth at almost every position, especially with Olsen secured. That was another big one to check off the list.
Sorry to all the Swedish fans that are watching this, and specifically to Robin Olsen's family if they're watching. We did forget to mention him when I said we've signed 3 players already. Obviously, we've signed 4 in goalkeeper.
Oh, I thought you meant because Coutinho is a formality.
Well, I suppose Robin Olsen was a kind of a formality being here as well. And to be honest, with all the speculation even coming from January the whole way through of Boubacar Kamara as well, I wasn't confident that we would sign him, but when we did sign him, it was a case of this club has done unbelievable work in getting this guy, courting him, bringing him, and enticing him towards the project. So that's always good to see. And as you said, competent management again from the top down, and we've had that for a couple of years now, and it's just beginning to blossom and to flourish, and we're beginning to see the fruits of its labor now within the transfer market. If I was to offer you a blank check, Jack, and I was going to ask you to sort out one position on this team, and you had to bring in a player of your choice, be anywhere within the team, what would Jack Grimse do? I should really give you a heads up on this one before.
Yeah. No, it's fun to kind of pop the question. I was thinking, I was like, before the show, well, maybe if Cam Archer does leave, bring in Paulo Dybala on the free because he's just left Juventus. That would be pretty saucy.
Free transfer. Another guy in a free transfer that shouldn't be anywhere near a free transfer. Gosh.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Oh gosh.
I think Dybala is a good shout. Could you imagine how stratospheric in South America Aston Villa would go having Emiliano Martinez, Dybala, Coutinho, Douglas Luiz, Buendia,
Diego Carlos.
Diego Carlos. We would be stratospheric. We would be South America FC. And I think that look, you know how mad they are for their football. Lacknoy spell good things because imagine the profile that will bring. Highly unlikely, let's admit, because in some of the podcasts I've been doing with players that have been rumored, you go in the podcast and you say this is highly unlikely to happen. I don't know how concrete this is. It's probably a lot of nonsense, these transfers or whatever, but it's still fun to talk about them at the same time. And it's some people will like it, some people will pillory will give out that you're wasting time on doing podcasts like that. But hey, at the end of the day, it's a long off season. And I just like football, and talking about somebody like Pablo Dybala, yeah, I can be in for that. I can certainly be in for that as well. Jack,
someone who we won't be able to afford his wages, even with a blank check, would be Paul Pogba.
No, I wouldn't want him within it. I wouldn't like him at Villa Park. There's a very vocal Irish commentator called Eamon Dunphy, and he is. Yeah, I won't even tell you what. But if you wanted to Google some clips of him, he was not the biggest Paul Pogba fan, and he was certainly not the biggest Cristiano Ronaldo fan. And if you wanted to Google some clips on what he's had to say about either of the two of those, his opinion of Pogba would line up with mine. So some of these I can't say on the podcast. I can't say some of his opinions on the podcast. But yeah, it's a fun one. Jack, before we go, I suppose I just want to say thank you so much for popping on. I know it's crazy o'clock for you there in the East Coast of the US, and thanks for making the time to pop on and chat. Where do you think that Aston Villa, I suppose, where do you think is a realistic position Aston Villa should be targeting for the off season or for the coming season? Once again, there's a lot of stories left to be written, so we're not going to hold you to this at any stage.
I think the target should be 7th place for the Europa Conference League.
Okay,
I think that's the next jump because as we know, like to this past season, there were fewer points, but like the season before, we had 55 points and finished 11th. So those positions of 8 to 14 can really be a logjam, and just depending on how it shakes out, it's kind of hard to quantify a finish between some of those places, in my opinion. But I think shooting for 7th, shooting for a meaningful cup run. We've been dealt not the best hand, drawing United in the first round. I think we should have beat United 3 times last season. Yeah. Really, they were atrocious. But making a run for it in the cup, we've even played Chelsea pretty early in the League Cup. So 7th place in a cup run.
There will be statues. There will be statues built of players if there was a 7th place in a cup and a winning of, let's just say 7th place, and if we were to win the League Cup, Villa Park would be like, it would be party central. That's all.
Imagine who we will be able to sign next summer if we're coming off the back of winning a trophy.
Absolutely, and I love the optimism going into this current season that's just finished. I had that optimism of I think we're going to finish anywhere between 9th and 7th, and I think 7th is very attainable. And then very quickly out of the traps because of our truncated off season, I had to revise my my predictions downwards, but I certainly didn't revise them as down as far as 14th. But as you said there, it's very concertinaed there between 8th, 7th, 8th, and down as far as 14th. And I think that's really the mire of the Premier League, and that anybody can put their head above the parapet in that area, as we've seen over the course of the last few years, like Leicester, Wolves, West Ham. Why can't it be Aston Villa? So I think a lot of people out there will temper their own expectations for expectation management, but I genuinely feel that a couple of more additions, specifically in the midfield and the attacking, maybe one more attacking addition, And I think that, that we would be well within our rights based on when you look at a team like West Ham and Wolves and even Leicester. When you look at their setups and their teams, they aren't a whole pile better than the squad that Aston Villa have at the moment, specifically if we were to maybe get a bit more firepower and a bit more creativity in midfield. So I like your optimism.
Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely so many intangibles. I'm not saying that that's necessarily my expectation, but that's where the target should be.
Of course,
Newcastle's going to be going for those places, and certainly going to be spending some money to do so. But I don't know. It's like with players like Leon Bailey, he's like a new signing to me, because if someone kicks on in their first season, they've been signed from abroad, they're just moving, they're settling in. That's a lot to deal with. So hopefully can really kick on this season.
Absolutely. Injury free and with a full preseason, I think anything is possible for Leon Bailey, for sure.
Yeah.
Jack, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. We've been speaking for over half an hour already, and it's I could stay talking for another half hour with you. It's been really, really great. I always say this, I always feel patronizing when I say this, but do you want to tell everybody where they can find you on social media, in case somebody isn't already following you? And if you're not following him already, you're doing social media wrong. So you should be following him.
I appreciate that, Neil. Yeah, it was a great time. Like you said, we could be here all day. Yeah, if you want to follow me on social media, I'm on Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, and all under my name, Jack Grimse. So you can find me there.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jack. And as I said, thank you so much for taking the time. Everybody, go follow Jack if you're not following him, but you probably are already, because he does some amazing content. So that's going to really do it for today. Once again, I'd like to thank Jack for taking the time at crazy o'clock. I know I've said it 3 times already, but I've been in that boat before, having to do interviews with people at stupid o'clock in the morning. So I can definitely empathize with that, and it is really well appreciated. I hope everybody enjoyed this chat today. Please give this a little thumbs up as well on YouTube, if you did enjoy it, and share it around with everybody for all to see. So that's going to do us for today. Exciting off season. It's been great to take this kind of almost a midpoint of the off season chat with somebody like Jack to get a different opinion, and it's always well appreciated. Until next time, everybody, stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up the Villa.
Up the Villa.